Was one several years ago. As I said earlier before, I have a few different pretty severe food allergies that I've had for my whole life, so I've always kind of known how to manage them. I had literally just a small piece of lettuce with just the tiniest bit of pistachio vinaigrette on it. I didn't know that it had pistachio vinaigrette, and I immediately could tell that there was going to be an issue. I went to try and get my Benadryl, but by the time I had gotten, I think 5 minutes later, by the time I got back to our hotel room to get the Benadryl, my throat was too restricted for me to even be able to take the pill. So at which point I was very, very, very sick, and if things were getting worse by the second, I wasn't really able to communicate at that time anymore because my throat was so closed. So I went over to my laptop and I typed up on my computer screen to my boyfriend. I was like, I need my EpiPen, which I'd left in my purse in the restaurant that was like 5 minutes away from us. So his sister came and brought us the purse, and I said that I needed, they administered the EpiPen. They called the paramedics, and the paramedics came and stabilized me to the point that they could get me into an ambulance and then take me to the ER. By the time I got to the ER, I was probably 60 seconds away from them having to intubate. But at that point, like, things just started to loosen up just the slightest bit, where they could tell that it was gonna be fine, it was gonna run its natural course. All of that to say, during that time, I was obviously completely incapable of communicating, since I had to type out that message on my laptop. And then from there, it was just, anything that I could do, yes or no. That was all I could really do. I think in those moments, it's really important, ideally we want to have our advocates with us, people who understand our medical history and can comment on it and provide that information, but that's obviously not always going to be feasible. Karen was talking about people's availability in the past, and it's sometimes, for whatever reason you're on your own. At that point, medical alert bracelets are super important. I think Heather's idea as well of having, a brief medical history written down somewhere where you can easily access it. And then of course the HPS QR code. Having any of that sort of paperwork when you don't have an advocate with you is hugely important, because I was not in any way able to communicate any of my issues, and Matt was able to do all of that in my inability to. So yeah, being able to communicate and over communicate as much as you can, whether that be with other people or documentation, is huge.
Thank you, Kelly. Karen?
One of the things I've had problems with in the hospital is being either halfway asleep, or sometimes I'm awake, and the staff will walk into the room and it'll be more than one. And they'll all just start doing things, assuming that I know who they are. And I have no clue who they are, and I have no clue what they're trying to do. So it would be nice if they would, just tell me who they are. So what I decided to start doing is, when you go into the hospital setting and you get into your room, there's usually a nurse that comes in, and then that nurse does, I guess you call it an intake, I don't know. And she will ask you questions, but they never really address. In my situation, everybody's is different. In my situation, it's a vision thing. So I speak up and I say, look, I'd really appreciate it if you would tell the staff to let me know who they are when they walk into my room, which they usually do at the beginning of the shift. And then they write the name on a board that's 20 bazillion feet. It could be, 5 inches, and I still wouldn't see it. So we've kind of developed a plan when we go in to make sure to tell. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it don't. What would really be nice, this is just kind of a dream, is if they would just hand you a postcard with the nurse's name and your CNA's name. But that doesn't always work, because sometimes they send somebody else in. So it's very helpful if they'll just simply identify themselves and not just kind of bombard you at one time. So that has worked rather well, just letting the intake person know. And sometimes I'll tell them at the beginning of the shift. So part of this falls on the patient. So you have to reach out and, as has been said, have a plan.
Okay, so
nurses are always your friend because they're the ones that really run the hospital. And so you don't want to ever make them mad. When I'm coming in as a patient, they're really good at assessing my pulmonary fibrosis, my other medical needs, but they often get really tripped up by the vision thing. And they get kind of a little obsessive about trying to figure out what I can see. And so, you know, I tried to get them to think about it a minute, because they'll say, well, what can you see? And I'll put it back on them and say, well, what can you see? Because, you know, I don't know about you, but when I've seen the same thing all my life, it's really hard. I don't know how you see, how do I explain to you? And there are, you know, things you can find online and YouTube videos and things like that to kind of give people a general idea, but when it comes down to it, it's not really that relevant to what our relationship needs to be about. And so I tried to sort of redirect their thinking a little bit and say, you know, why don't we, like, it's going to be really hard for me to explain to you what I see, and I give them some stupid general comment about what it might be. And then I say what's really important is that we kind of understand, like, what I need your help with and what I don't think I need your help with, and when it comes to some understanding about that, like, that's kind of really more relevant here. And so, yeah, redirecting that can help. So, yeah, then you can talk to them about their concerns. Ask them what their questions are about their concerns about caring for you. Make any requests that you need. Like, I kind of, you know, a lot of times they'll come in, the cleaning staff or whoever, they'll start moving stuff around my room and not put it back where I left it, and not seeing while I'm like hunting all over the place for it, which if you're really out of breath is really not helpful. I will sometimes talk to them about what Karen said, the whiteboard, the infamous whiteboard, and I'll say, in my hospital, the nurses all give, they all have cell phone numbers, and you're supposed to just call them directly. Well, the problem is, every shift change, the whiteboard changes. I've tried writing it down on a piece of paper, but inevitably the piece of paper goes missing. It gets carried off with my food tray, like something happens to it all the time. So if I'm able, if their writing is good enough, it's clear enough that I can see, I will try to take a picture of the whiteboard on my phone so I can blow it up. Or I'll just say to them, look, I'm going to use the call button on the remote thingy or on the bed, and I know that's not the way you guys really do it with your phones, but that might work better. So then they kind of understand what's going on. This really becomes clinically relevant in treatment in terms of if they, well, for example, I was in the hospital one time, and the doctors are saying, you know, get up and walk as much as you can, which I'm all for, but the nurses wouldn't turn the alarm off of the bed. The day I'm discharging, they're insisting on leaving the alarm, so I can't even go to the bathroom or pack my clothes. It's like, I live on my own at the time. I'm like, you know, sending me home in 3 hours, if you're so concerned that I can't operate in my room, I would, like, what are we doing here? Like, so sometimes, you know, that's a problem. One way that I mitigate that is I look for my allies. So I have I love all my transplant doctors, but the one guy that was on that day is somebody I especially really like, and we seem to understand each other well. And so I pulled him aside and I'm like, look, Dr. King, here's the deal. I'm having this problem with the nurses. I'm trying to get up and walk around and do what you guys are telling me to do, but they're really freaked out about the vision thing, and they won't let me move anywhere. And I said, I need to understand, is there a medication issue I'm not aware of? Like, am I more dopey than I think I am? Like, or is this, you know, kind of what I'm thinking, it's a vision issue. If it's a vision issue, could you reassure them? Because you know me well. And interestingly, when I am on a floor where I have been there a lot and the nurses know me, I don't have the same issues. So sometimes just finding an ally, because I didn't want to like start complaining and going, you know, up the nurse hierarchy food chain, complaining. I didn't want to get anybody in trouble or cause it. I just needed somebody to understand my situation. So I felt like just kind of handling it like that maybe was better from a relationship standpoint, and it worked, so.
Thank you, Heather. So as a mama, I always had trouble going to the emergency department, and they would say Hermansky-Pudlak, what? Like, nobody understood what that was. And so, of course, we helped with actually the help of Jody that just sat down. Our QR code is something that really gave us credibility, and we're not the crazy parents that they think we are. So that is, vital. And I, also in service, people like an ambulance close to us about that as well, so that I'm never the crazy parent when I need to have an emergency room. The other thing I really, really worry about for all of you guys and all of our experience is germs. I am very, very concerned about nosocomial, like hospital infections and picking up germs. So as I mentioned, I made a kit for going to the doctor's office. I also made a really scary bag of germicides to go with me to the hospitals whenever we're there. So obviously you can see that I'm using this, and they have an antibacterial thing, and they also have Perel on the table, that I'm really concerned about people's infection things. So in my kit, I obviously have wipes that can take care of MRSA and C. diff and all those kind of wipes. I have gloves. But the other things I do is, there's a lot of places that you can keep clean. So I bring tall kitchen bags, plastic kitchen bags, and I put them over the hospital stand, like the night table, and I use it as our tablecloth. And every day I just chuck it out and put another one on, chuck it out, put another one on. I, certainly wipe dead rails wherever we are. For Ashley's revocated fusion, I have a beautiful set of purple sheets that go with me. And I wash the chair, and the purple sheets go on the chair, and she sits on the purple sheets like a little darn princess. So I think that really thinking about just being prepared. You know that you're in a situation that, you have a chronic illness perhaps, and you know that this might be in your future perhaps, and we hope not. We hope that we can cure this at the meeting of the minds later today. Tomorrow morning we come out with the cure, but the likelihood of that is probably slim. So you really got to think about it and prepare a bag that's got all the stuff you need to keep yourself clean in a hospital setting. The next question, and our last question. And when you're enrolling in research, because everybody in this panel has been enrolled in research of some sort, can you tell us about an experience as a research participant? Kelly.
Fortunately, most of the research participation that I've done has been directly through the network, whether it be CellFire or NIH Natural History Protocol. So they have, fortunately, an understanding and a tolerance for some of our special needs that we have in terms of larger print and understanding. Maybe it's better for us to have things read to us and that sort of thing. So all of that's gone pretty smoothly for me. So I feel like I would just reiterate any sort of research study that's being done. It's really important to have an understanding of the subjects that you're working with and maybe what their accommodations might be, whether that be visual impairment, hearing problems, that sort of thing, and being able to accommodate. Again, I've done a few through that actually occurred at the conference. They always had large print, and then the actual researchers would oftentimes even go through and read the questions to me and answer them for me so that the answers would happen on the right place, and fill out my information and that sort of thing. And then CellFire and then Natural History Protocol through the NIH. So fortunately, just with those experiences, they all had a very intimate knowledge of our needs and were very accommodating from the get-go.
I've also had a positive experience with the NIH, and if my hand will quit shaking, I can look at my paper. Since, I've been enrolled in the natural history study for over 20 years, and the one thing that they cover for me is travel costs. So, that's an issue, traveling to and from research. You always worry about, well, how much is this going to cost me? So the wonderful thing is when flying to NIH, they make sure that a SkyCap gets me to and from. So they get me to the airplane. From the airplane, they get me to the shuttle. They make sure I'm on the right shuttle to get to NIH, because there's a shuttle that will pick you up. And once you get to the clinic, they have, a lot of times you stay at the lodge across from the, if you're an adult, it's across from the clinical center. If you're a kid, they have the Children's Lodge, which is absolutely
I
wonderful.
wish I were a kid.
It makes you want to be a kid. It really does. And once you get into the clinic, you know, they have escorts that they will call, that the staff will call. They'll come and get you, and they get you to where you need to go, so you're not just fumbling around in this big, I don't know, umpteen-story building that is extremely overwhelming, especially if you're legally blind with two other legally blind people, like 3 blind mice.
We got lost one night together.
But my favorite part is the fact that the tests that they do don't cost you anything. So a lot of times I've been able to put off testing at home that I would have to pay out of pocket for, and my doctor will accept the results from, of course, National Institutes of Health.
So I've participated in research at the NIH and outside of the NIH. And it works a little differently as far as what they'll pay for and such. But as I totally reiterate what Karen said, cost to the patient is a huge factor. I have also had a really positive experience in general in participating in research, especially at the NIH. So we're all, I guess we're NIH groupies over here because we all really appreciate being there.
It's Club Med.
It's Club Med, yeah. So one of the things that I really appreciate is how much time they spend on going over all the test results that you've had during your week stay or whatever it is there. It's not like a 15-minute doctor's appointment where they kind of go bloop, 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 and you're done. I mean, sometimes that going over your test results can take an hour or more, and you can ask all the questions you want. They give you copies of everything, or you can, I think they have a portal now, you can get on the portal, so that is fabulous. My one piece of advice would be, and I haven't been in a while, so this may be different now, but when I've needed images, like if they do a CT scan, I don't want to go home and do another CT scan in a month because I just had one at NIH. And well, not only that, but I don't want to be exposed to the radiation. So I asked for copies of the images, which they're happy to give you, but you have to, you get them through medical records and they can be forever incoming. So I suggest, if whenever possible, to not leave the building until you have that CD in your hands. Because if you need it, you know, within the next couple months, it might not come in time. So. And I think that's it. I think Donna, you got it.
Yep, thank you, Heather. For us, obviously, in the very beginning, I was telling you that Ashley's the index case at NIH, so we were really in there at 6 years old, going into research, which is really weird. First of all, at that time, they weren't sure what to research, so they kind of wanted to do every test that they could imagine to figure out how to skim it down for the protocol once the protocol opened, because we were there pre-protocol by 3 years. But I have to say that as a parent of a young kid, I needed to be able to show her strength that I didn't have. I didn't even have the strength to show her the strength that I was trying to show her. But the trick is to try to compartmentalize the whole situation. And when you want to ask questions that you're concerned about, probably do it in the hall. Try to do it away from them so that they don't see you nervous or see you worried. There have been times where, you know, I left the room and went to the bathroom and cried, but I never did it in front of her because I wanted her to feel strong and safe. And I think that's really important. So when we're making the decision to enroll children in research, which I fully believed in my heart it was the right thing to do, there was nothing in me that was regretting the decision or thinking it was wrong. I just needed to raise a kid that was going to be feeling safe and secure in her life. And so I had to be a masked face. I had to be the court jester while it was going on and try to ask questions behind the scenes. It's sometimes hard to get doctors, researchers to respect that. Like, I don't want you to have this conversation in front of her. It was a little hard for us because she had a traumatic brain injury, so even though she was a little bit older, they might consider her able to handle this, and I knew better. Like, this was not something that we wanted to talk to about in front of her, so I had to really advocate about pulling this aside. My point is that we have no control over this disease. We're trying to get a cure, we're trying to get a treatment. But the thing that we do have control over is our coping skills. It's how we cope with this. And children model adults. And so we need to be really good copers. And we need to, present it in a positive way. I never, ever, ever lied to Ashley or did not answer her question. When she was old enough to ask a good question, I answered it always very truthfully. I'm not saying that I ever held back. I'm just saying I always remained super calm, positive and upbeat so that she could feel that and feel the comfort of that. So, running out, in a closet and screaming is fine, but not in front of the children because that they will model that behavior. So the better that you do coping, the better the kids would cope. So our goal for this panel was to just talk about some challenges and some possible mitigations and how to kind of get through it. And you can see that I chose my wonderful panelists because they are the best copers. They are our role models for coping. They're still smiling. They've got their clothes on this morning. Kelly's got makeup on. And I wanted. And a 6:15 a.m. flight means that you got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, dark 30 to get here. And she still looks good. So the point of this panel was to show, like you can struggle through, but you can do it with a smile. Heather talks about you doing it with humor. And it's all about coping. And you got to just fill up that basket of coping techniques and get through this situation. So thank you very, very much to my lovely panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. And everybody's got a 7-minute potty break for our genetic counselors are going to take over the room and give you a lot more great information. Thank you.